Today's episode is inspired from my Self-Care Society class titled Creating Space for a Great Week. And our opening quote comes from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I don't know if I said that right, but I hope it was close. 1900. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. And I am so excited to talk about this word spacious today because, man, it has been one of my goals for years and something I'm really focused on: spaciousness, simplicity, ease, that sort of thing. So we'll dig into that a little bit more, but let's start with defining the word space. So a continuous area or expanse, which is free, available, or unoccupied, or the dimensions of height, depth, and width within which all things exist and move. Okay. So unoccupied space. This is a big deal. Within all things exist and move. And spaciousness, to me, it has just represented so much peace in my nervous system. And after I feel like so many years of being in that real hustle and feeling like it's in that rat race, I just feel like I'm doing a lot to really unwind that. So I hope that this episode in our session today helps you dig into spaciousness for you as well. So as always, we're going to start with our pause and practice, which is just an opportunity to embody the feeling of spaciousness. So to actually bring it into your nervous system, into your cells, like what does it feel like to be spacious? So if it's good for you, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close your eyes and just sort of imagine that you are an actor or an actress, and it's your role is someone who feels very spacious. Okay, so what does that feel like in your body when you breathe that in? When you commit to feeling spacious? For me, it's just expansive. It feels like every like deep breaths. It feels like taking up space. It feels like a calmness, though, for sure, and just kind of like white space, which is so beautiful and something we'll talk about too. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with space. So I told you space has been this core desired feeling of mine for the last 5 years, and probably the word that comes up the most anytime that I'm clarifying what I want more of in life. Now, I fell really hard into the #girlboss era. And at one point, I was running 4 different companies while caring for a newborn and juggling a variety of additional endeavors. And I was just so burnt out. I had sold my meal delivery company to a public company, but I stayed on board as an executive for some time after that. And it was really a tough industry. And it became really clear that with the rising cost of shipping and quality ingredients and so many of the other things involved in our operation, that sustaining it much longer was going to be quite hard. So I really remember the specific day that it just made sense that it was time for me to step away. And specifically, I remember going into my calendar and removing all the recurring meetings, all these weekly recurring meetings that I had been facilitating for so long. And I swiped through my calendar and I saw more white space on my calendar than I had seen in as long as I can remember. And I could hardly believe it. It felt like this deep release and this exhale in my soul and this letting go and creating space. It had such a physical impact on me that I actually got my period back that same day. The same day I went in and created this space for myself when I was 8 months postpartum. I'd, had my baby 8 months ago. And while I can't prove that that played a part in my body's ability to let go, I can't help but consider that it made an impact, right? This release, this instead of this tight and this holding on, my body got to just kind of relax for a second and go into the flow. So it's been very interesting. And it's been something that from that moment forward, I've really been more protective of my space and my peace as I move forward, because this is really important and it just feels good. So today, as I said, I'm deeply protective of my spaciousness. I crave slowness and ease and less complicated living. I would say I'm better at saying no, and I'm extra mindful of what I commit to. I have a long way to go, but I'm on the right path. And I hope that these tips and the exercises in this episode are going to help you get there too. So here are 4 tips for inviting more spaciousness into your life. And I said we would. We're going to talk about a white space day. So take a white space day. This is something that I learned from my personal coach, and it refers to having white space on your calendar. So every 4 weeks, she took a creative week in which she took no calls and was unavailable outside of emergencies. And she used the time to focus on herself and her own creative projects. And she really inspired me to take a white space day on my calendar. So for a long time, I was doing this on Mondays. And every Monday was my white space day. And I would use it as this time to stay off social media, to focus on getting my priorities taken care of. I wouldn't schedule any calls or meetings. It was just white space to let myself flow. And then other times, white space days, it kind of evolved what I use that time for. Other times it was about creativity and just, like I said, this day to flow, to allow myself to do, kind of lingering creative projects, or really to just do whatever I felt called to do. Like I said, sometimes it was just about having a no calls day each week. No matter how you do it, doesn't matter how you do it, make it your own. I can assure you that it will be nourishing. So a white space day, really, really powerful stuff. Second thing is that money matters. Okay. It does. When we're talking about space, money matters because in the majority of circumstances, it is our drive for more money or more resources that keeps us in the hamster wheel of doing more and more and more. And I'm guilty of it too, as I've spent many years creating as many revenue streams as possible. But at some point though, you're going to burn out and your focus is so scattered that it's hard to do anything well. I've certainly experienced that. And while I honor that in many cases, it is completely necessary to hustle to meet your basic needs, we do have to ask ourselves if where we're investing our precious time and resources is truly moving us forward. Like, it's a balance, of course, as more money can buy you more freedom and more spaciousness, sure. But I urge you to actually run those numbers and make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze, right? Like, do an analysis of your time investment, your resources, whatever it is you're doing, and actually pause and say, and this is why reflection's so important. That's why I love journaling and this kind of work, is you can pause and reflect and say, is this actually worth my time? Right? Because sometimes we just keep moving without pausing and analyzing and saying, is it worth it? Right? The third thing is to use what you have. Now, this was a really big theme for me last year, and I brought it with me into 2024 too. And while it's not the case for everyone, I hear often that people are struggling with the clutter in their homes and their lives, not to mention our minds and our attention spans and all that. And so many people are wanting to live with more spaciousness, but they have this hard time letting go, or they're hooked to the jolt of joy every time an Amazon package lands on their doorstep. So I've been focusing on using what I have as often as possible. And this is on my, like I said, on my life sheet goals list from New Year, second year in a row, is like, use what we have. So the way that I do this is I keep things out in plain sight, right? In plain view. While of course it's nice to put things away in cabinets and hide things, oftentimes that's the way that they get buried and they don't get used and they expire or whatever it is. Okay. So putting things in plain view where you can see them so that they get used. I also add things to my shopping carts online that I feel like I need, and I let them sit and marinate. Okay. So not just buying something the second you need it, but letting it sit and deciding 3 days, 4 days, a week later if it's something that you really need. I also share things on my local Buy Nothing groups. This is something that I learned from Lily Pettit, who's a holistic home organizer. And these groups are just places you can say, hey, I'm looking for this, or I have this. Does anyone want it? And there's no money exchange. It's just an opportunity to give things a second life within your community. And it's all very local focus. I also ask myself anytime that I'm wanting to buy something I feel I need, if there might be something else we could use, or we might have like this thing lying around somewhere, right? So if you want to keep it, you got to use it. Otherwise, give it away. Don't underestimate how much your physical space can deeply impact your emotional, mental, and spiritual peace. Now, the next thing is to not forget that if we want to call in more in our life, we need to create the space for it. If you're holding on to a job that doesn't serve you, or an ex-lover, or a dream of the day when you XYZ, you are blocking precious space that would allow in something that is likely better for you. And I want you to let go and see what happens. Okay. So as promised, we're going to get into some exercises straight from Self-Care Society classes. They're going to help you feel more spacious. So as always, we'll pause to give you a moment to think, but feel free to stop the recording or session at any time if you need more space to ponder or to write. Okay. You're also going to hear inspiring examples from our live Self-Care Society classes too. And you can join us for a full schedule of live, full schedule of life, that too. But we're trying to create more spaciousness here, but a full schedule of live and on-demand classes at selfcaresociety.co. All right, let's get started. So our first exercise is a classic exercise that you really can't do enough, and it's called a brain dump journal. So I want you to take a few minutes to either write or just think about stream of consciousness, what's going on in your head. Like, use this as an opportunity to create space in your mind, just dumping out any thoughts that are taking up mental real estate, okay? Because all of the racing thoughts and to-dos and the anxieties and the chatter takes up physical space, okay? So here's my example. I'm so excited to be back in my routine this week after a wonderful week off. I love the flexibility and flow of the last week, but also thrive on having structure and systems that support me. It's Billy's 40th birthday, and though he's working most of the day, I hope he feels how loved that he is. I'm so proud of myself for clearing out so much stuff from our home. I feel so much lighter, and so on. Okay, so you can see this is just like a brain dump, exactly what it's called. This is a brain dump of whatever's going on in my mind, okay? So just take a few moments here. You can write, you can just close your eyes, contemplate, like, what are the racing thoughts that are bouncing back, ricocheting through your mind? Can we give them attention so that we can release them and give ourselves that space? Beautiful job. And that's a tool that you can take and use daily. I think a brain dump journal is a really powerful exercise to do very regularly. So our next exercise is gratitude. And this is called Thank You for This Moment. So I want you to look around at your space right now. And in this very moment, write gratitude for what you witness. Okay. So really practicing gratitude for what's right in front of you. So for example, I said, thank you for my office space filled with inspiration. Thank you for my standing desk platform and my desk treadmill that allow me more movement during the day. Thank you for the beautiful plant that Susie gifted me that has lasted so long. Thank you for my morning coffee that I always look forward to. Okay. So look around you right now, wherever you are, and what can you feel grateful for? There is always something, and not just something. There's always multiple things that you can honor. Elle says, thank you for the countless number of books that surround me, for they have helped me become the expansive person that I am today. Stephanie says, thank you for the cheerful stream of sunshine in my room. Annie says, thank you for my morning coffee that has become slow and a ritual each morning. Beautiful. So our next exercise is an intentionality exercise called Ideas for More Space this week. Okay, so we're getting tactical, we're getting practical. And I want you to think about your week ahead and make a list of any ways that you can create more space for yourself. Okay, so what's already on your list and how can you support yourself in living more spaciously? This could be physical space, more time, more mental, emotional space, more self-care space, whatever. Okay, so for example, for me, I could allow my partner or my mother-in-law to watch our child, the baby, no matter how early, so that I could honor my self-care time. I could take time in the morning to intentionally plan the day and organize my asana where I do my tasks and my calendar and really utilize my whiteboard. I could carve out time to plan content for our mastermind meeting, as well as to give thought to what I want to share and ask for support with. I could read in the hammock. I could work outside. Okay. So knowing what you have on your plate, knowing what's ahead and being realistic here, where could you incorporate just a little bit more space for yourself in the week to come? Stephanie says, I could stop work a little earlier each day to allow space for unrushed transitions. Kim says, I could read instead of scrolling. Nati says, I could set up for the next day the night before. Beautiful, beautiful ideas. So we're going to do an affirmations exercise next called Affirming Yourself and Space. So I want you to take some time to think about or write some guiding affirmations for you this week. Okay. So you can write them as they pertain to spaciousness or really just whatever you need to be reminded of this week. So my example, I said, I'm taking space to care for myself, no matter how many things I have to do. I am making progress one moment at a time. I have more than enough time. And this is something I have written on my whiteboard at home too, is I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time because that is something that I've struggled with and that I am really trying to incorporate into my deep core belief system. Okay. So what do you need to hear? What is an affirmation to remind you, whether in the spaciousness realm or just in general, that you want to take with you this week? Tiffany says, I am not behind. I am a work in progress. Annie says, I do not need to fill space simply because it's there. Stephanie says, I am creating space for myself so that I can free up space in myself. Suzanne says, I am drenched in abundance. I have all I need. Things come to me at just the right time. Mackenzie says, my body is resilient and communicates so clearly her needs. I listen and oblige. Kelsey says, I prioritize and keep my sacred space safe by reminding myself how valuable and personal it is. Kim says, I create space in my beautiful, creative mind with daily meditation. Jess says, this week I am centered. I trust the timing of my life. Octavia says, there is so much space for me to take up freely. Sherry says, my life is spacious and open to all the goodness and abundance available to me. And Amanda says, I just have to focus on the next right thing, not everything. Wow, man. And we included a lot of examples here because they were all so powerful. So if you struggle with affirmations or you're new to this work, come back to this episode, write these ones down and read them, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's some powerful stuff here. It's one of the beautiful things about doing self-care and community and doing community care is that we get to learn and grow from each other. So I hope some of those inspired you as much as they inspired me. So this next exercise is a space exercise. It's called the space that serves me and others. Okay. Oftentimes we, with self-care or doing anything for ourselves, it's easy to think that it's selfish, right? But so I truly very often have to help people understand how their self-care and giving themselves space and following their dreams actually positively benefits so many other people in their path. Okay. So in this exercise, I'm going to have you use the prompt below to clarify, or the prompt I'm going to share to clarify how giving yourself space serves not just you, but the world. Okay. So the prompt is, when I have the space to blank, I have blank and others blank. Okay. So let me give you an example. When I have the space to rest, I am more clear-minded, kind, present, and generally happier. Others get to experience me when I am engaged, curious, and have the energy to show up for them. Okay, let me give you another example. When I have the space to keep the house in order, I feel calmer and more peaceful. Others, like my family, also get to live in calm and peace. I donate things to others who need them more than me, so they benefit from my clearing space as well. Okay, so take a moment here to at least come up with one, right? Like when I blank, I blank. Okay, when I create this space for myself and I do this thing, this is how I benefit, and this is how others benefit. Okay, so take a moment here. Okay, and now we're going to have a video audio share from Octavia.
When I have the space to rest completely, I shine and am able to inspire. Others receive and feel seen.
Thank you so much, Octavia. We are so grateful for you being willing to share with us and inspire us. Now, for all of you listening or watching, thank you for being here. Remember that from space comes expansion, okay? If we don't create it, we can't allow for what's next. You deserve to live a life filled with flow and ease. You deserve to feel like you have a moment to breathe and to check in with yourself. You deserve all the spaciousness that you desire, and I am right there on the journey with you. So thank you so much for joining me today on your morning mindset practice. I hope you're feeling more spacious, and I'd love to have you join us at selfcaresociety.co for a live or on-demand class so you can stay consistent with your self-care, connect with other like-minded people, and continue filling your cup so you can overflow onto the world. We need you. See you next time.